This is Leonie Hobbs, and in this presentation I'll be talking about the 7 nutrients, the digestive system, and the components of a balanced diet. There are 7 nutrients, and they can be either macro or micronutrients. The 7 nutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, fats, fibre, water, vitamins, and minerals. The types of nutrients are macro and micro. Macronutrients have 3 types, and that is carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and the 2 micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. Macronutrients are needed in large amounts, but micronutrients are only needed in small amounts. The function of carbohydrates is to provide the brain and body with energy and to spare fats and proteins. The 2 types are simple and complex. Simple carbs give short bursts of energy as they are easily broken down. The 2 types of simple carbohydrates are monosaccharides and disaccharides. Complex carbohydrates take longer to break down because there's more molecules and more bonds to be broken. In a day, the calorie intake of carbohydrates should be 50%, and 1 gram of carbohydrates equals 4 calories of energy. When carbohydrates are broken down, they turn into glucose and are stored as glycogen. In the muscles, 325 grams of glycogen is stored. In the liver, 100 grams is stored, and in blood glucose, 15 to 20 grams is stored. The function of protein is to repair and build new cells in the body, and also they are building blocks for bones, skin, muscle, cartilage, and blood. The 2 types of protein is complete and incomplete. Examples of complete are meat, eggs, and dairy, and examples of incomplete are beans, rice, and vegetables. Complete proteins contain all 8 essential amino acids, whereas incomplete don't. 15% of daily calorie intake should come from proteins, and similar to carbohydrates, 1 gram equals 4 calories of energy. Amino acids are building blocks for protein, and there are 2 types. Essential amino acids can't be made by the body, so we have to get them from food, and non-essential are created by chemicals in the body. The function of fat is to help develop the brain, for example, the hormones, mood, and memory retention. They also protect organs and the body, and sometimes they can be used as energy, depending on if all the carbohydrates or proteins have run out. The 3 types of fat are saturated, monounsaturated, and polyunsaturated. Saturated fat can also be known as bad fat, and these are sausage, butter, or ice cream. Monounsaturated and polyunsaturated are good fats, and they are olive oil, almonds, avocado, milks, eggs, and salmon. 35% of the daily calorie intake should come from fats, and 1 gram of fat equals 9 calories of energy. The function of fibre is to help digestion, and there are 2 types. The first type is soluble, and this slows down the rate of digestion and also slows down the rate glucose is released. This means that it will just release energy slower, so it will use up more time. Soluble fibre also decreases the risk of heart disease by binding with fat and blood cholesterol. Examples of soluble are sweet potato, oats, and beans. Insoluble fibre helps aid digestion through the large intestine, prevents bowel disease by keeping the large intestine clean, and also widens the stomach to make you feel fuller for longer. Examples of these are cereal, lentils, and avocado. In a day, we should intake about 18 grams of fibre. There are 3 functions for water, and they are aid in digestion by dissolving soluble fibre, removing waste through sweat, urination and desiccation, and also preventing dehydration. Water is very important because of those three functions, so we should drink 6 to 8 cups, and 6% of our body is made of water. There are two types of vitamins, and they are fat-soluble and water-soluble. Fat-soluble vitamins are stored in the body for a much longer time than water-soluble, and water-soluble are absorbed very easily, but if there's been too many consumed, then they will just be excreted. Sometimes not having enough vitamins can lead to deficiencies, and a deficiency is a lack of something, and they can lead to things like bad eyesight, tiredness or scurvy. The 6 vitamins are A, B, C, D, E and K. There are also 2 types of minerals. Macrominerals are needed in much larger amounts, whereas trace minerals are needed in smaller amounts. Also, not having enough minerals can lead to some deficiencies, such as weak bones and teeth, dehydration, and loss of appetite. The types of minerals are zinc, calcium, potassium, sodium, magnesium, and iron. On to digestion. There are 2 types of digestion and also 3 key stages. The 2 types are chemical and mechanical. Chemical digestion is breaking down food into simpler nutrients using chemicals. For example, saliva contains amylase to break down carbohydrates. And mechanical digestion is chewing food into smaller pieces. The 3 stages of digestion are digestion, absorption, and excretion. The stage of digestion happens in the mouth, stomach, and small intestine, and the digested food is then absorbed into the bloodstream in the small intestines. Any excess water is absorbed back into the body in the large intestine. After being absorbed back into the small intestine, or the large intestine, then any thing that can't be put to use will be excreted either through your urine or feces. The parts of the digestive system are the buccal cavity, the esophagus, the liver, the stomach, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the duodenum, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and anus. The function of the gallbladder is to store bile. The function of the large intestine is to dehydrate and compact waste products ready for excretion. The function of the pancreas is to release digestive enzymes into the small intestine. The function of the anus is to get rid of waste material. The function of the stomach is to act as a large mixing bowl where the food gets turned into a liquid. The stomach lining also releases enzymes to break down food. The function of the rectum is to temporarily store waste products. The use of the mouth is to break down and mix food with amylase, which breaks down starch. The function of the liver is to store bile and produce it. The use of the esophagus is to move food from the mouth to the stomach. It squeezes the food down the tube to the stomach. The use of the duodenum is to absorb water and neutralize acidic juice. And the use of the small intestine is to absorb nutrients and minerals from food. A balanced diet for an athlete is going to be very different from the diet requirements of an average person. This is because depending on what sport they do, they will need different amounts of carbohydrates, proteins or fats. For example, a marathon runner needs 65% to 70% carbohydrates because they're running for very long distances for a long time, so need to have a slow release of energy. They'll also need 12 to 15% protein, which is similar to normal people, but most people do get enough protein in their diet to repair muscles after training or events. They'll also need 25% to 30% fat, which is less than the average. This is because they don't want to have loads of fat, otherwise it could hinder their performance. A marathon runner also needs to have water, fibre, vitamins and minerals, more than average. This is because otherwise their bodies may have a lack of certain vitamins and minerals, or they could become severely dehydrated. And that is the end of the presentation.